Jason Cooper stood in an alien war chamber surrounded by 7 towering warrior princesses, each furious, each claiming he was now their husband. His mistake: tripping into a sacred circle during what he thought was a casual jungle walk. Now, the fate of an empire rests on a ritual he never meant to trigger, and the sisters are ready to tear each other apart over him. But what happens next will shock even those who think they've seen it all. But first, let's go back to the beginning. The silence that followed was a tension-soaked abyss, thick with the weight of political consequence and personal insult. Jason stood motionless, arms held tightly by hulking Celeran guards, clad in chitinous battleplate that shimmered with heat signatures and kinetic fields. Their grips were crushing, but what truly froze him in place was the gaze of 7 alien women, each one a living monument to war, beauty, and power. The throne room, a cathedral of obsidian glass and humming graviton architecture, seemed to shrink under the gravity of their combined presence. Thalexa, still on the raised dais of command, did not blink. Her 4 arms, each as elegant as they were deadly, remained motionless, yet her obsidian eyes tracked every twitch in Jason's face with surgical precision. Something primal simmered just beneath her facade, some war between law, pride, and curiosity. She hadn't expected this. None of them had. The one in red armor, her molten plates venting plasma heat like an angry forge, stepped forward again. Her voice had the edge of a blade long used and never dulled. "You know the right, Thalexa. We are blood-bound. No sister may take a consort alone. He must win us all." Her helmet retracted, revealing a strikingly angular face scarred across the jawline. Where Thalexa was precision, this one was force. "Rhalyra," Thalexa said evenly. "This was an accident." "Accident or not, tradition holds. Or have you grown soft from court life?" Rhalyra smiled without warmth, eyes flicking to Jason like he was an insect between glass slides. Jason's heart pounded in a dissonant rhythm. "Okay," he said, voice tight. "Just to clarify, I tripped into a glow-in-the-dark circle during a wildlife panic, and now I'm engaged to 7 warrior princesses?" Another sister, blue-skinned and veiled in flowing neural silk, stepped forward. "He is amusing," she said, her tone like wind through shattered glass. "But unvetted and biologically unstable." She peered at him. "He sweats when under stress. Fascinating." "I'm not unstable," Jason said, biting back panic. "I'm confused. You people run a marriage ritual like a military op." "It is a military op," Thalexa murmured, finally descending from her throne. "The rite ensures strategic unity. Emotional compatibility is optional." Jason exhaled slowly. "So, love isn't part of the deal?" "Love," Thalexa said, reaching out to lift his chin with one clawed finger, "is a battlefield luxury. We require only alliance." Her touch was cool, almost gentle, but her eyes were war. Behind her, the sisters stood like shadows of fate. 7 rulers, 7 rivalries, and 1 sarcastic Earthborn engineer trapped in a ritual older than Earth's continents. And somewhere in the vaulting silence of that alien chamber, Jason Cooper realized this wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a war in wedding dress. The containment chamber on the Valtoran war cruiser was a masterpiece of engineered irony. Gilded columns, atmospheric control systems that mirrored Earth's climate, and biometric comfort settings wrapped Jason Cooper in the illusion of hospitality, while invisible force fields ensured he remained, fundamentally, a prisoner. The ceiling displayed the bleeding corona of the dying star they orbited, a sullen reminder that time, like energy, was always burning down. Jason paced across the transparent floor, the endless stars below mocking him with their indifference. Beeps hovered near the ceiling vent, whirring with idle diagnostics, occasionally emitting a disappointed bzzzt when Jason failed to entertain. I'm supposed to charm 7 alien warlords, Jason muttered, tugging at his borrowed tunic. But I can't even get a decent cup of coffee. Correction, Beeps chirped. Princess Zyla denied caffeine access after your last attempt at seduction via latte art. Quote, primitive bean fluids shall not be used as diplomatic bribes. Jason stopped. That heart I drew was immaculate. You misspelled her name. That was on purpose. It's called negging. Humans invented it. Works sometimes. Beeps emitted a skeptical hiss. So does disintegration. Works every time. Jason leaned against the bulkhead, gazing into the void. His sarcasm masked calculation. He understood now. He wasn't a consort. He was a keystone. The ancient pact that bound the Valtoran dynasty to the Celeran Council had always demanded consensus among the blood heirs. But consensus had become impossible. The sisters were each a blade honed by politics and betrayal. None trusted the others. Jason, the foreign anomaly, the neutral constant, was their only shared variable. That gave him leverage. He started small. Rhalyra, the war-hardened eldest, was all armor and flame, but her battle mech had a faulty reactor shunt. Jason fixed it mid-explosion, emerging with scorched eyebrows and a grin. She didn't thank him, but the disintegration order disappeared from her files. Zyla, diplomat and poisoner, sparred in verbal daggers. He responded with Earth idioms, riddles, and lies crafted with just enough flair to make her curious. She called him an undisciplined animal, but with a tilt to her lips that suggested something closer to interest. Yelaya, quiet and shrouded in grief, responded to music. Jason sang for her, a haunting Appalachian ballad about love and death. She didn't speak afterward, only left him a Celeran bloom known to mark remembrance. None of this was love, not yet, but it was movement. The deadlock of hatred cracked, just enough for something else to flicker through. Respect? Curiosity? Even the beginnings of empathy? One evening, as they enacted yet another performative wedding trial, Thalexa watched him with a gaze no longer sharpened by contempt. "You confuse me, Jason Cooper," she said, her voice low, uncertain. "I despise your insolence, but I cannot stop thinking of your voice." Jason, smiling through a split lip courtesy of Rhalyra's elbow, looked up at her and whispered, "You should hear me sing when I like someone." The vault was nothing like Jason had expected. No golden altars, no ceremonial weapons polished for show. It was cold. It breathed history in whispers of oil and carbon scoring. Massive banners, frayed by time and war, hung limp in grave silence. Racks of scorched armor lined the walls, each piece marked with blood codes and sacrifice sigils. Thalexa moved through it like a ghost among her dead, 4 arms trailing across relics that had killed, crowned, and buried centuries of warriors. Jason followed slowly, the echo of his footsteps absorbed by the hall's solemn hush. His eyes were drawn to a curved sword sealed behind transparent shielding. The blade was cracked down the middle, blackened with a residue that seemed to scream. "That was our mother's," Thalexa said, voice barely above a murmur. "The blade that ended the War of the 5 Sons, and her life. Poisoned in battle, assassinated by the same council that now dares to judge you." Jason turned, saw something new in her face. An ache hollowed over years, not days. "You still haven't answered my question," he said. "Do you want to marry me? Or am I just your ticket to unity?" She stopped, facing a wall where a faded family crest was etched into steel. Her shoulders were rigid, her breath shallow. "I wanted you as a tool, a symbol, a manageable pawn." She exhaled. "But now, you laugh where we sharpen knives. You sing to sisters who only know silence. You listen, even when we snarl." Her voice cracked slightly. "You've become inconveniently dear to me." Jason felt the weight of her words press against something raw inside him. But before he could answer, alarms flared, brief, brutal, and sharp. The matron council had spoken. He was an illegal anomaly, a false consort. Their verdict was clear: nullify the pact or eliminate the human. Back in the central chamber, the sisters had already drawn their lines. Rhalyra stood at the head, her molten armor lit with defiance. "If he dies," she growled, "we destroy the pact and the council." Jason stared at her. "You hated me?" She smirked. "We still might, but no one else gets to touch you." And just like that, they moved, not as rivals, but as a unit. Hours later, deep in a stolen control node buried beneath the palace ruins, Jason and Beeps wired into the galactic relay network. Static shimmered, then yielded to Jason's image. No crown, no regalia, just him in shadows, eyes hard with truth. "You don't need a king," he said, voice steady. "And I don't want a crown. I just want a chance to choose who I love. And maybe be loved back." No rallying cry, no anthem of war, just choice, offered in the middle of a rebellion born not from power but from something messier, something stronger: love. The grove was ancient, older than the matron council, older than the wars that carved the surface of Celera 9 into craters of pride and grief. It sat at the heart of the equatorial ridge, untouched by machines, ringed by living pillars of translucent stone that hummed softly with the planet's pulse. Bioluminescent vines unfurled in slow spirals, reacting to the presence of the 7 royal bloodlines reunited in a way the stars themselves hadn't seen in generations. Jason stood at the center, barefoot on sacred moss, the fabric of his worn earth-made shirt torn but clean, heart loud in his chest. He looked from face to face, 7 expressions, 7 pasts, and not a single one demanding a throne. Rhalyra, the war-forged firstborn, stepped forward. Her ceremonial band was forged from hull fragments of her first battleship, set with fragments of fused starlight. She extended it without speaking, nodding once with the steel grace of someone who had learned to speak with action, not words. Zyla followed, fingers wrapped around a band of woven alloy and frozen memory, a whisper of secrets encoded in metal strands only she could have forged. "I don't trust easily," she said, voice quiet, "but I trust you to challenge me." One by one, they came. Yelaya with a band carved from music stone that sang when warmed by touch. Vera with her crystal lace grown from the tears of a lava field after battle. Sorel with an obsidian ring from the underdepths of the planet. Kala and Brexa, twins who offered a single intertwined loop, a symbol of mirrored lives finally aligned. Each offering was more than symbolic. It was a surrender of power, of legacy, of fear. Not one asked him to bind himself in duty. They asked for choice, for respect, for presence. Jason stared at the bands laid out before him, eyes burning. "I can't marry all of you," he said, voice hoarse. Thalexa, radiant and unarmored for the first time since he'd met her, stepped forward. She reached for his hand, not to take, but to hold. "You don't have to," she said. "That was never the point. We only needed to know if you'd stand with us, not for us." Jason laughed, the sound raw, disbelieving and real. "Then I choose all of you, not as wives, as family." The grove responded first, flowers blooming in bursts of violet and gold, the air thick with scent and warmth. Then came the tears, princesses who had not wept since childhood, letting go of generations of weight. Then laughter, unexpected, unfiltered, like sunlight breaking through centuries of clouds. Above them, beeps floated silently, optics recording, broadcasting to the stars. In every corner of the fractured empire, Celerians watched in stillness as war's heirs chose peace, not as surrender, but as defiance. Because sometimes love doesn't conquer all, but it changes the rules. And sometimes that's enough to start a better war, or end one.